All right. Can you hear me now? Dan keeps. Can you hear me now?
Oh, mine. Not sure. Back to my mic.
Oh, okay. How about now? Okay, apologies to anyone who's out there. We've hit difficult phones. Welcome to the. Oh, yeah.
But it looks so nice.
How about now?
Far so good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Again, apologies for our technical difficulties with microphones. Welcome to our October 15th Expanded Budget Committee meeting. And our expanded meeting this year. There was a slight change to the agenda. Robertson is meeting with James and has we delay consideration Finger Lakes reuse until she can get back into the meeting. And I have asked her if she can't get back to the meeting to let us know, so we'll just go forward with it. So apologies to Diane, who's going to have needles again for a little bit longer. So I guess we should move on to the OTR for to restore COVID-related cuts to the Human Services Coalition. Martha, that's yours, so I'm going to let you move it to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is my mic working? Yep. Okay. All right. And I see Kathy Slaughter. I would like to move the $70,000 target funding, as I said, to restore COVID cuts. And if I get a second, I'll explain that.
Okay. Annie, is that a second? Okay. Motion on the floor. Here, go ahead, Martha.
So folks may remember we had mid-year cuts to all sorts of people, all sorts of agencies in 2020. And we have not restored to where we would have been. And this is the same kind of idea as the rural libraries motion farther down. I wanted to just, you know, if HSC had its full 2020 funding and then had a 2% increase in 2021 and a 2% increase for 2022, the delta is $70,000. And I think we need to restore that baseline. Human Services Coalition has done an amazing job of work in the pandemic, just adding staff whenever we needed people to, you know, sign up people for the emergency rental assistance, you know, adding many more staff to the 211 phone system because they ended up being the go-to service for an immense, you know, for like almost everybody in the county and for all sorts of programs and resources and help. They helped individual agencies figure out how to apply for PPP. They also, like everybody else, figured out how to provide human services remotely on a dime. So I'm just sort of scratching the surface here for how HSC responded to the pandemic. We desperately needed them when they were there, and I think that it would be it's certainly only fair to bring them back to where they would have been had there not been the mid-year cuts and the subsequent cuts. So that's what I'm thinking about. I've been on the HSC board as liaison, and I want to say I'm going to advertise it, y'all. It's at 8:30 Friday morning meeting, but it's a great board. It's an awesome organization. So somebody should pick it up next year.
If they would, I might consider it. Does anybody else want to speak to this?
I do.
Henry?
Yes, since Kathy is here, maybe she can tell us about how they survived with the cuts.
Sure. So we've been, taking on a lot of new programs. We've had things like housing stability programs, doing the ERAP, Mayor's Guaranteed Income. We've gotten enhanced housing vouchers and youth demonstration program. And we have been those grants come with program funding to fund the people who are doing the program. What they don't really cover so much is things like the management, finances, technical support, the things that help you make sure that you can administer the program successfully. So we actually got some PPP funding, which helped us cover the cut in 2020. So this doesn't include the 2020, reduction in funding, the overall reduction in funding. But actually, we are now running a deficit budget, and where we can cover it, maybe this year, but to continuously run a deficit budget is going to be very problematic for us. So this is kind of why we're requesting this at this time. All these programs have added, supervisory things. They've added onto the finance department, which is causing us to have to hire more finance people, and adding a lot of like our tech support people are also trying to figure out a lot of the technical aspects of these and how we can do those. So like everybody else, we managed. We worked hard, and you were very gracious in helping us restore funding to a lot of the agencies. And then I realized we hadn't restored funding to ourselves. So that's kind of what this is a request for.
Okay, thank you. And I will support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Shauna and then Mike.
Thank you very much. I would like to make an amendment for this to come out of the recovery fund.
To be charged.
To be charged to the recovery fund, sorry.
Okay.
Since this is very specific to COVID relief funds.
Is there a second for that? I see Glenn and Mike, so, okay, so who wants to speak to the?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Shauna, is this going to be similar to the one we did the other night? Because this is target increase. So is it going to be like a 3-year? Or
interesting.
How are we going to do this?
Yeah, it is going to be target, and it's going to compound. The issue that Kathy's dealing with as well.
Yeah.
If she's running a deficit as a result of.
That's right.
In 2020.
That makes sense. No, I withdraw then. Okay. That makes sense. Thanks, Mike.
I wanted to ask Lisa, and perhaps Martha and other folks remember the slide that Jason Molino gave us, I think, at our budget retreat about how to use some of the stimulus money to help the Human Services Coalition over, as I can remember the chart, with a line that would ramp it up. Why is this better than what he was suggesting? And I don't know whether Lisa wants to comment or not.
Yeah, let's get out of that. And I see Rich John also, he had his hand up.
Yes, I'd be glad to comment, and I apologize. I'm having trouble with my camera. I hope you can hear me, and I might just make my way over there in person in a minute if I can't get my camera to work. So yes, that was my plan, was to bring back funding for our supported agencies, and if necessary, even our departments ramp them up, do a glide path to restore target funding using the ARP funds, as Jason outlined at the beginning of the process. Fortunately, with the when we received that additional funding due to the decrease in the employer contribution for New York State pension costs, it freed up enough money in our target budget that we could restore the target funding to departments and supported agencies within the target. It was so the funding that was brought forth through the budget process, we were able to do that, and HSC did not bring this request forth through the budget process. This is so what we did restore back was the cut that was to supported agencies through HSC, but this piece did not come through the budget process. It came as member filed amendments now. So I hope that makes sense.
Okay, Mike, you said it?
Go ahead.
Okay, Rich, did you still want to speak? And then I have Martha again.
No, I don't need anything. Thanks.
Okay, Martha?
Yeah, so Lisa, if this had been included in the request, would you have singled it out and not incorporated it, or would you have incorporated it?
I would have made an attempt. I would have made an attempt to incorporate it if possible. Sure.
I want to talk about for just a second about the sort of aw shucks, golly gee, we're last in line attitude sometimes of the human service agencies. And I think this is kind of the coalition, like take care of everybody else first. And that's, admirable. And, but there's also the theory of put your own, mask on in the airplane when the airplane is crashing, put your own mask on first. So I think the coalition, the core coalition, does such critical work for all of our residents and for all of these agencies, and it does it with really a shoestring budget. I think we should just recognize that they are one of our most important partners, and this is fundamental to their operations. We also have put $1 million from fund balance into basically target expenses. So there's we absolutely can incorporate 70,000 in this with the tax without bumping the tax levy up in any meaningful way. So I think this is just really a sort of profound statement that says, yes, Human Service Coalition, you should be back where everybody else is.
Okay, anyone else? Are we ready to go? Okay, Kathy?
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion, Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Lee Show,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
13 ayes, 0 noes.
And to be clear, that was for target. Shauna had withdrawn.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't, county can necessarily restore everyone to their pre-COVID position. But I'm certainly willing to make an exception for the Human Services Coalition because they certainly do an amazing amount of work that helps the county serve its residents and allocate its funds to the agency's purposes. So moving. Okay, this is your multi-year OTR for student resource net initiative.
We did that.
We did that last night.
Yeah, sorry about that. There was a mistake on there. I had marked it as not done, but it's actually complete. My apologies on that one. We would now be on.
Well, I just follow you blindly.
Yeah, yeah, no, I don't do that. The building access to the child care coordinator would be the one that we are on.
Okay, so building access to childcare. Shauna.
Yes, I would like to move the building access to childcare coordinator position that will be offered in the Child Daycare Council.
And Amanda seconds. Okay, ladies, you want to speak to this?
Sure. So this position was actually created 3 years ago, and we had someone filling it in a 3/4 time. And over the years, we've realized that the position has changed a little bit with COVID. And right now, I worked with Melissa Perry, who is the executive director at Child Development Council. Yes, sorry. I think it used to be called the Daycare Council. And we came up with a job description that really complements what is needed in our community. And so you'll notice that the focus is more on training daycare providers, training employees, as well as offering more assistance in terms of administrative, because that seems to be what daycares are really struggling with. It also, the position continues to recruit providers. And, you know, essentially what we've done is we've moved from the 3-time OTR, since this would be year 4, and we're making this position target.
But you are modifying the description of what they're going to be doing.
Yes, yeah, there will be different roles that this person will play.
Okay, before we go any further, Daniel, could you stop sharing your screen so we can see people?
And Melissa Perry is here to answer any questions.
Okay, questions?
I have a question. Hello?
Okay, now we seem to be back in.
Sounds like a flashback, time warp.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Henry, go ahead.
Yes, Melissa, I was wondering, is this Jude's old position?
Henry, yes. So Jude Rose was in this position for the past 3.5 years or so. She has actually resigned from the council, so will not be continuing this project, but we will looking at internal talent and hiring from outside if we need to continue the project.
Okay. I know that the last time Jude appeared before the legislature, she had a report on everything she had done. I saw the materials that Shauna put in, but there was no information about what's been accomplished by this person. Do you have any of that information?
Sure. I can tell you some of the most successful aspects of it that we have become a provider sessions. That is the recruitment process. We are sharing information about the need for childcare and the viability of running a childcare business, and walking those individuals through the process from being interested in providing childcare all the way through running a successful business. So we've had 4 centers or not centers, but group family providers who attended Become a Provider sessions and are still running really successful businesses. So Tompkins County is a childcare desert. That means we have more than 3 children for every 1 childcare slot that's available. So this project has helped create over 58 more slots of childcare in that time.
I know
And
that-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
The individuals who participated in the pilot and opened their businesses through the pilot are still open today. And unfortunately, providers who did not participate in the pilot, most of them have closed their doors already.
Okay. I know Jude also with the ESG reported to us also talked about how you maintain the number of childcare slots, that there wasn't an increase, but it wasn't a decrease. Do you know what the numbers are now in terms of that?
Currently, we have 1,396 slots in Tompkins County.
Right, but how'd that compare to last year or the year before that in terms of whether there's been an up or down situation?
Right. It is pretty much leveled out at this point. As I mentioned, some of those providers closed mostly due to COVID. So we did lose some spots. I might have the information right here. So let's see. So we were down 24 spots, down 44 spots because of COVID, and then we've increased 58 spots. So we've recouped some of those spots and then built some on top of that. And of
Okay.
course, we need that work to continue.
Okay. Also, I know that there was a delay in New York getting the funding to you from the federal government. How has that played into this decision to submit this position?
Sure. So this position is really focusing on building those individual relationships with with providers and providing coaching and business support so that they're more successful. So in helping them so that they can leverage and be prepared to take advantage of the grants that are coming their way, federal funding, such as the stabilization grants and money from the CARES funds that were coming down. So we're supporting them in being able to access those additional funds that we're seeing during this time. But as for staffing, that hasn't really, we received the payroll protection, if that's what you're referring to, staffing wise.
Yeah, I'm referring from the CARES Act and things like that.
The CARES Act, yes. So we've distributed almost all of the CARES funding, and that it was a little bumpy going in the beginning because there wasn't much notice or information being shared with us, but it is going smoothly now.
Okay. In terms of the pandemic, I know that it closed lots of centers. Did have any new ones opened up after the pandemic in 2021?
One has opened, so providing 16 slots of childcare.
And do you know how
We
many?
have some in process.
Okay. Do you know how many closed?
I
During
don't
2001,
have-
2020.
Let me see. I think that there were 3 to 4 that closed permanently because of COVID. So some were closed and then they reopened. They were able to reopen with these funds that were coming down. And then some were not able to reopen after that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Martha.
Yes, first, Melissa, congratulations on becoming CEO
Thank you.
of Child Development Council. And we all wish Sue Hall a wonderful retirement. You said there are 1,396 slots currently in the county. Was that just family daycare or family plus centers?
Correct. That's
Family-
centers and family daycares.
Okay, that's for licensed. There's certainly lots of unregulated,
Right.
unlicensed informal
Correct.
care.
That's licensed and registered care.
Okay, I think it's sort of hard to prove a negative, like how badly would we have fared through the pandemic without this position? You know, did we, but I think the evidence is really that this is a very hands-on kind of counseling, mentoring, helping of individual, like one person at a time to develop 5 slots, 10 slots, 16 slots. And, you know, it's, you know, a lot of families really like that kind of care. So it's not, it's important that we provide that sort of labor intensive coaching and help. It's also hard to build and maintain larger programs. And so I think this has been, it's really important that we had this person on board as the pandemic hit. It meant that she already had relationships and she was already available to people. So I really look forward to having this be a permanently funded position that can grow with the county, can grow with the needs of the community. And I feel like every once in a while, I need to just say my first career was in childcare, was a childcare teacher. And it, you know, it's this tug because workers aren't paid enough, but the only place to get money to pay the workers is the parents. And I think we all hope that the pandemic has revealed what a gap that is and that Washington will, we hope soon, kind of resolve that. But in the meantime, I think this is a really important position and I'm happy to support it as target.
Thank you, Martha.
I don't think that we need to prove a negative. I think the fact that we actually ended up a few slots above where we started shows that we're bucking the trend. I would just remind everybody that we are creating a permanent position that will be with us from now until the mind of man runneth, not to the contrary. So any other questions? All right, are we ready to vote?
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion, Henry Granison,
No.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Leslie Show,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
No.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
11 ayes, 2 noes.
Okay, Melissa, I sure hope that you all can leverage this with some federal funding to beef up our availability, because I know that 1,400 slots is like maybe 1 slot for every 6th child or something.
Right. Actually, yeah, we have about 3.5 kids for every available slot right now. So yes, thank
It's
you.
pretty hard to jam 3.5 kids into 1 slot.
There is, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, early intervention homelessness prevention. From one-time to one-time multi-year $40,000 each of 2022, 23, 24. This is Martha and Henry's. Would somebody like to move that? Henry, Martha seconds. Who wishes to speak to this? Martha?
Thank you, Deborah. Well, Keith McCafferty is here, and it's another change in executive director. So Keith is the new executive director or lead attorney, whatever the title is at Law New York. And I just want to support this. I think that, you know, childcare and housing were kind of 2 of the very biggest crises that the pandemic revealed. I think that, but we know that homelessness has been a dire problem in our county before COVID. So if anything else, it's something that we need to continue because it's only worse. So Keith, if you want to talk about what this position would do, I'm sure you can speak to it better than I can.
Sure, thank you, Martha. Just real quickly, the paralegals who fill this position, and we've hired 2 folks, so they're both partially funded with this county funding, have contact with folks who have maybe been threatened with an eviction, but nothing formal has happened yet. So it's trying to get folks who maybe aren't taking the eviction threat seriously, or maybe so overwhelmed that they're taking it too seriously, trying to get them focused on what they need to do and get them connected with the services they need to solve all the problems that are resulting in this threat of homelessness, and try to do that before this case winds up in court with an eviction, or before a landlord is doing something like locking somebody out illegally. So it's trying to address all those problems up front and connecting people who are falling through the cracks with service providers to get them the help they need. So they're getting legal support and legal advice, as well as sort of a social worker type intervention with connecting them with other folks. And we're finding that to be hugely successful in resolving problems up front before they turn into an eviction, either keeping somebody in their current housing or helping them transition to someplace else that they can afford to live permanently. Or if the case does wind up in an eviction case in court, which has happened once this year, our attorneys are much more prepared to handle the case because we've been working with the person for a couple months now, and we've gotten to know their situation very well.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? I have, Dan, go ahead.
I'd like to move an amendment to subtract this amount from the recovery fund.
Do I have a second?
Isn't this Target?
No,
Yeah, it's a multi-year one-time, Henry, and Mike seconds that.
Mike.
Lane, sorry. Okay, does anybody want to address Dan's amendment? Amanda and then Martha.
Well, I want to clarify, was last year the first time we had this? 3 years ago. Okay. So it was a 3-year one time. So you're wanting to extend it to be another 3-year one time? To understand.
I'd be happy to support it as target. I mean, as I said, homelessness was a problem before COVID, and it will be after. And this is a targeted prevention that helps.
it's not in resolution as target, so.
No, I was being modest. I thought, extending the one-time funding would be easier, but that would,
Well, that was my question. Just what, was the intention that it would become, or was, your intention that it would become target at some point?
I mean, I think that it's a really cost-effective way to bring high-quality support to families that most need it. And when we talk about equity, this is kind of like, how do we actually reach the specific people who have been pummeled by the system? And eviction is such an expensive event for a family, expensive sort of economically, socially, mentally, in terms of health. And there's a spiral that happens. So even saving a few families is worth $40,000 in county money.
Okay, Dan, did you, I saw your hand or?
Just that the amendment is not debating the merits of the program, it's just the funding source.
All right, so Amanda.
Well, I guess then my question is for Dan, why would you want to switch it to the recovery fund?
For the same reason that I want to switch everything to the recovery fund is that it will, in my opinion, setting aside the recovery fund and then putting in OTRs is like double dipping. It's increasing the amount of money we'll be spending at fund balance.
Okay, I have Shauna, then I have Mike Sigler, and then I have Annie.
So I agree, homelessness is not going away. And I will definitely be supporting this resolution. I was wondering, I mean, we've seen it be successful over the past 3 years, like very successful. I send constituents there constantly, and Law New York takes care of them. So I guess once I'm trying to think of how we do this. So
Well,
I would,
could interrupt, Shauna.
Yeah.
I think part of the confusion that Amanda's identified is that if we want this to be a permanent program, then it really should be written to go into target.
that's right. That's what I was,
Understand what we're voting for. And if it's going into target, then I don't think it belongs as a charge against the CRP. So I guess the first, and I don't know procedurally how to do this, but the first thing we have to determine is whether it's going to be target or an extension of a multi-year OTR.
There's an amendment on.
so wait,
Well, if Dan,
I wasn't finished. So I think, one compromise here might be actually to do the first year out of recovery and then the second 2 years out of target.
I don't think we can actually make that motion.
Yeah, I don't, sorry, this is Dan Nolan. I don't think that's like a way that we could do it. It would just, you could state. that that's
Can't
an
hear you,
intention.
Dan.
Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me try to turn it up a little bit more. I believe that you can state that that's your intention, but there would be no, kind of like we discussed last night, there's no guarantee that that would actually wind up occurring because the next legislature would have that decision because it's the.
That's
you
the
vote
case
on-
for every single OTR we do.
Right. Well, we
Yes,
vote on
yeah,
every-
exactly. You just wouldn't be able to say necessarily guarantee that it is target. You can't adjust the target in and out year.
And I would move that it goes to target right now. So,
I don't know that you can do that as long as
I'll second
Dan's
that.
motion's
We
on.
can vote Dan's motion
Unless it
down.
was friendly.
Either Dan can withdraw or we can vote it down or,
you can vote afterwards.
and then remove it as target.
All right, so Dan, what's your pleasure?
I'm happy to withdraw it. I was reacting to what was printed on the paper. If the board targeted appeared there, I wouldn't have made my motion.
Okay.
Thank you, that simplifies things. So then, I guess we can consider Henry's motion to change this, to amend this to the target.
I'll second it.
I'll second that,
Deborah.
Okay, so we've got second and Dave McKenna. So now we're talking about Henry's amendment, and we still have to hear from Mike and,
That was on the other amendment. So what?
well, I don't know, because Mike had his hand up for Dan's amendment. So Mike, did you want to speak to the motion generally?
Well, mine's more of a question. I have two questions about the program itself. I guess the first part of the question is this a little bit like criminal where everybody that comes through the door gets a defense, or does the program actually kind of weed out who deserves a defense, I guess, against the landlord, or do they judge on which landlord case maybe should be defended against and which one shouldn't?
That's an excellent question. So there is no right to counsel in eviction cases currently. So we base our decisions when somebody asks us for assistance. We base our decisions on whether they're eligible, of course, for our services financially, whether their case fits within priorities, whether there is something that we think we can do in terms of intervention to help them either save their current housing or successfully relocate without an eviction somewhere else. So, and we're looking at taking the toughest cases to try to solve with this program.
Mike, do you have anything else?
The second part of my question is your approach more reaching out to the landlord first, or we're going to see you in, you're taking this to eviction court, so we'll see you in court? which would be the approach.
Absolutely, the whole purpose of this program is to avoid the second part of that, is to try to prevent the "I'll see you in court" thing from ever happening. So it's to try to work with the landlord if we can, work with other community agencies. An example might be somebody who's got a hoarding issue in their apartment. It's like, how do we activate the community to help clean this place up, to restore the relationship with the landlord so that this person can stay there?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I assume you're finished, Mike. And frankly, because of the procedural entanglements we have found ourselves in next, if anyone is waiting to speak, please speak. Otherwise, Martha wishes to speak again.
Yeah, just briefly, my understanding is often clients aren't aware of benefits they qualify for through DSS. And that's one of the things that Law New York does, is say, hey, do you know about this? Do you know about this? Helps them apply, helps them get the benefits, the services that they're actually eligible for. And often that can kind of clear up the financial difficulty.
Okay, that's good to know. So I have a question. Since this is a program that keeps you up, do we have metrics for, you said case that in court case.
Yeah, but you're breaking up.
Pull back from your mic a little.
Yeah, but then you say you can't hear me.
That's better.
Right there.
Sorry, guys.
Don't move for the next 2 hours.
No problem. Okay, so let me repeat myself. I'm interested in what the metrics are for this program. You said, Keith, that you had one case that out of how many clients that you counseled?
So this year we've had 30 cases that we've taken through the EHIP program. We have had none of those clients wind up homeless. We're working still with most of those families because of the moratorium has affected some, but not others. We've had one case, which if I describe the whole details to you, you'd be horrified by, but wound up in court after a long drawn out effort to resolve it. The court wound up dismissing the case, and our client is still living in their housing, and still we're trying to work with the landlord. We've gotten them a bunch of money from ERAP. They're all caught up in their rent. And so we're helping that household with a bunch of other issues related to their housing.
Thank you. All right, are we ready to vote on Henry's proposed amendment, which would put this into target? Looks like we are, Kath.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I have one more question for Keith.
Okay.
Keith, we communicated about the future of this program. Can you talk about the numbers this year versus the anticipated numbers next year?
Yeah, thanks, Henry. I expect this program will really take off and be even more needed next year. I mean, I think the need is greater than what we've served so far this year. And I think part of that is personnel here at Law New York. If you saw the report I shared, we had a very low case number last year, and I think that was because of staffing issues. I think now we've had 30 cases so far this year. We're continuing to take cases. We're doing lots of outreach. When the moratorium ends in January and we have more landlords becoming more active in terms of evictions, I think we'll see more tenants reaching out to us early on before they have court papers. As a couple of you have said, the homelessness problem is not going to go away. People can't find new places to live. That's what all our clients tell us who are threatened with eviction. I want to move, my landlord won't fix things. I can't find a new place to live. And so it's let's try to fix things with your current landlord so that you don't wind up homeless at the end of all this. So we expect the numbers will grow pretty significantly next year, along with the number of evictions that start going back to court once the moratorium ends. I also would just say on that point, Henry, that the county's commitment to this project is just a tremendous chip for us to use when we look for additional funding for this kind of work from other sources, because we can say the county's bought into this. And that's, you know, our match that we're going to use for a statewide grant or federal grant that we might apply for. It's great to have the county support for that reason as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's vote, people, on the amendment.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Bain,
No.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Leslie Show,
Yes.
Sickler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
with 12 ayes, 1 no.
Okay,
So that's the main motion.
yeah. On to the main motion, which is to put this into target. Are we ready to vote on that? Okay,
Yeah, the motion that just passed, put it as target.
right. And now we're going to vote on the OTR itself. Okay.
Shauna
God, I knew this was so hard.
Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Bain,
No.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Leslie Show,
Yes.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
ayes, 1 no.
Okay, folks, we've now added 160,000 to target, and that's just going to grow and grow. Just be aware. So now we're going to move on to the OTR filed by Robertson, Corman, McKenna, and Sigler for rural libraries. Is another $18,631 to be added to. Who wants to speak to that?
Move it first.
Please. Martha moves it and Glenn seconds it. So would sponsors please address this?
Somebody else take it. Go ahead.
Well, they're all, Martha.
Okay. You know, what they do with a couple of nickels, it's, you know, it's incredible. And so the same thing as what we said with the coalition is that that they not only suffered a cut in 2020 that got propagated in 2021, but they did more than ever before, and communities depended on them more than ever before, whether it's, you know, bringing books out to people, bringing book, you know, cleaning books, figuring out ways to do remote story hours, all the rest of it. And I think, you know, one of the effects of COVID could be, if we didn't do this kind of motion, would be a sort of systemic degrading of our services that would propagate through the years. I think this is the time to bring them back up to where they would have been. You know, 2% a year annual increase isn't much anyway. And I think it's better to do this now than see what damage will propagate later.
Mike Lane.
My name's not on here, but I would certainly support this. But my question, Martha, does this also include the increase? Is this the increase for all the libraries and Finger Lakes library system, or just the 5 rural libraries?
I think so. I did the math, and Susie Gutenberger confirmed it. And that was my intention.
That's what I hope. Hopefully, that would be the way it would be. Oh,
Sarah Golgowski's here. She might be able to.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I believe that is the figure for the 5 rurals and Finger Lakes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I mean, I think the rural libraries and the Finger Lakes library system is a wonderful thing, and I support this. So if no one else has anything to say, I think we will vote on this one.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Yes.
Henry Granison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Leslie Show,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
13 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay. So now we will be looking at the OTR filed by legislators John and Black to support a local emergency subscriptions to. Johnny,
You're doing it again. Back away from your mic.
Sorry.
Yeah. Deborah, I would move this OTR. And if I get a second, I'd be happy to speak to it, unless Deborah
Okay.
wants to, or I'm sorry, Shauna wants to.
No, that's, and Sean, I second that. Go ahead.
This is an exciting opportunity to address a serious problem with all our volunteer ambulance and firefighters throughout the county. There's significant costs related to radio communications. The handheld radios cost around $4,000 a piece. And the county provided money many years ago now to help the firefighters buy radios, but they're breaking down and they don't have enough. Harlan McEwen has helped shepherd a grant from an anonymous donor to fund a trial of a 2-year subscription for an application called ES Chat, which allows you to use your cell phone as a push-to-talk radio, and groups can communicate on it as they would with a handheld radio. This is not a full replacement for the portable handheld radios, but it would allow many more emergency responders to participate. The base grant provides the underlying equipment and subscriptions. It's a subscription model for approximately 200 emergency responders to use this system. The OTR would just go to additional subscriptions, so we could expand it to an additional about 135 emergency responders. So we could move well beyond just volunteer firefighters and ambulance personnel to say social workers, community outreach workers, mental health workers. It really fits in with what we're trying to do in expanding our response to various kinds of incidents in our community. And it really does it at a very cost-effective amount. The OTR is one time so that we can test it for 2 years. If it doesn't work, then we wouldn't renew it. But likely, if it's successful, this would probably come back as a target request in 2024 budget. Thanks.
Thanks, Rich. So at the end of this, we would be deciding whether to continue to subscribe, basically, for all the users.
Correct. And
Okay.
this OTR pays for a 2-year subscription, so it'd be 22 and 23. So then we'd consider what to do about it in 24.
Great. Shauna?
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess we're ready to vote.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Granison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
yes, Leslie Show,
Yes.
Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
13 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay. All right, we have now come to Finger Lakes reuse, and Leslie's not here. So I just sent a message. I'm going to suggest we take maybe a 5-minute break and see if she wants us to just move forward without her. Thank you.
Martin, you want some Snickers?
I'm good, yeah, I'm all right.
What?
And they are. And nobody else in the house, so I know that.
A lot to target and don't have a.
Waiting.
Deborah? Hello, Deborah?
I'm muted and I can't get up. Okay. Rich, are you calling for us? Now
He's muted.
you're muted still.
Sorry, thanks. I was asking, what up? What's going on?
We took a break. Leslin could get here, but I think we're going to go ahead because we're all here and Diane's here and.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
let's.
Can I ask why Rich has Vaseline on his camera lens?
Can we have Diane come up to the table?
Sure. Why don't you go sit up there? So we.
I do seem a little hazy today. Sorry about that.
You're a little fuzzy.
Yes.
All right, we're back. And we will now be considering last year, which is a multi-year OTR for Finger Lakes reuse, 130,000 each year, for 2022 through 24 inclusive. Who would like to move this and speak to it? Annie moves it. Do I have a second? Leslie? Who wants to speak? Go ahead, Annie.
I can start. Thank you. So I'd also like, for the record, to add Legislator Schill to one of the sponsors of this OTR. So thank you for signing on to that also. So I sent out an email today if folks got to look at it that restated, or not restating, but I resent what the OTR was about, which I have originally sent a week or so ago. And the budget's a bit of a blur. I also, Barbara Ekstrom also sent out an email with a letter of support for this OTR today. And as people know, she's our director of recycling and materials management. And so this department for 12 years has helped form, provide guidance, and give financial support for the operational financial support to Finger Lakes reuse. And largely due to the bottoming out of the recycling market, as we all know, the last 2 years, the recycling department was financially unable to continue funding Finger Lakes reuse. And they were funding them at $130,000 a year to provide operational support. So this OTR is to restore that. And as people hopefully saw in Barb's letter, that they are also providing $15,000 I'll let Diane speak to this, but to help look at their operations. And for this year alone, they're projected to have $2 million in revenues, generating $160,000 in sales tax for the state of New York and locally. And this is the largest by far organization of its type that possibly in New York State, but absolutely in the county, that looks at waste diversion. We all know about recycling, but before we recycle, and this is in our county charter, is you want to reuse items. So this is an organization that focuses in on that. And the last couple of years, they've had a huge increase in the amount, which is good, but that people are doing that, but they've had a huge increase in the amount of items that people are bringing in. So I'll leave this to, Rich has also helped a lot with writing this OTR. So I'll leave this to Rich or Diane if they wanted to add anything else.
You know, I would just say that this is a promise made in effect by the county that we really encouraged Finger Lakes Reuse to take certain actions in terms of supporting our waste stream reduction processes. And it's important. I think this is a worthwhile expenditure of county funds to make sure that these services remain in our community. Happy to try to answer any questions, but I don't think I need to say more than that.
So who has questions? Mike Lane.
So, and you're saying that this used to be funded through the solid or the
recycling.
Yeah, we don't say solid waste anymore. Recycling materials management, and so they've dropped it from their budget.
But financially, they were unable to provide any money for 2021, so they did not receive
I just
anything.
want everyone to understand, therefore, for services that we used to have in the recycling department, we are raising the solid waste fee by $5, and now we would be adding this onto the regular tax rate. So these things are all based on the poor return we've been having for recycling materials, commodities. We understand that. Not surprising, but I just want everyone to understand that this is going to the property taxpayers on top of the increase in their solid waste fee.
Martha, I see you, but I want to clarify. And I don't know, I guess, Diane, you're the one that could answer this most clearly. The $130,000 that you were getting from recycling and materials management was a payment for contracted services. Was that not the case?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. All right, Martha.
Whether it's, I mean, I think so in Barb's letter, she talks about the county's waste diversion goals. For me, Finger Lakes Reuse hits so many buttons more than just waste diversion. That would be enough, but you know, but when you go there and you see the kinds of goods that are available for people at a very low cost, so that people, for example, like OAR can go and fill up a truck to, and I don't know whether you donated this, I know you donate a lot. These are materials that otherwise would just be useless and thrown away, increasing our carbon footprint, and end up instead becoming useful and have a whole second or third life for people who can't afford to go to a new store, to go to a store to buy things new, who can't afford to get stuff from Amazon. I know there are bales and bales and bales of clothing that you've sent to not just Catholic Charities here, but to other counties as well. So the kinds of things that at a core, this entrepreneurial nonprofit has figured out ways to do, you know, ways to recycle more and more things that we never imagined could be reused. This just fits with like so many of our goals. I think it really deserves this kind of support.
All right, Amanda and then Shauna.
Thank you. I love the reuse center. I go there all the time. I found an amazing dollhouse there for $19. It's great. I love dollhouses. However, I don't think that we should be funding the operational budget of an organization. So I would make an amendment that this is one-time funding.
Yes,
it is for 3 years.
Yeah.
So for just 1 year.
Does anybody want to second that? Her amendment was, it was 1 year, one time.
1 year.
I would second that.
Who said that? Mike
Sigler.
Sigler. Okay, who wants to speak to the amendment? Okay, Rick?
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe it's for Dan and Lisa, but I don't have the detail behind this one, but where is the expenditure, should this pass, where is the expenditure going to be budgeted?
Lisa? Daniel?
The expenditure for this proposed amendment to fund the reuse center, is that your question?
Yes, because it looks like you're putting the expenditure in the recycling and materials management fund, which is a separate fund from the general fund, and you're putting the revenue, you're taking the revenue from the general fund, and you can't do that unless you do a fairly complicated transfer between funds, between the general fund and the recycling and materials management fund. So I'm wondering, should this amendment pass?
That's an error on there.
Plan.
Can I speak to that? I think that I saw that on there as under department agency, and to me, that was an error. That's not how I intended it to go through them. Not through Department of Recycling. Yeah. It was to go directly. So if that could be corrected?
Yep.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so
Corrected to what? So where will it show, what unit or what department will be? If it's not RMMD, what should be there for the department?
Question. So if this is funded, it would no longer be a contract through recycling and materials management. It would come out of probably county administration, where a lot of the other contracts, a lot of the other freestanding contracts reside.
Okay.
Annie?
Thank you.
Sean? So,
We're still speaking to the amendment, right?
so yeah.
Then I'm not on that.
Annie? Are you speaking to the?
Yes, to the amendment. I'm going to read from Barb Ekstrom's email today that her proposed budget includes $15,000 to assist Finger Lakes Reuse with developing a long-term plan for its program and financial stability that can be developed by the end of May for consideration in 2022. So we can look at that then. We can vote next year and see what's come out of this, the long-term plan and the financial stability program. I'd still like to keep it in for the other 2 years.
Martha?
As a one-time allocation, even though it's for 3 years, it means it gets voted on anyway. So taking off the second 2 years just means that it has to start all over again. If it's a one-time, for 3 years, it shows up. I mean, one of our issues was, did it go through the county administrator's review? As a one-time for 3 years, it is automatically gone. It automatically goes through the county administrator's review, who then looks at it, evaluates it, makes a recommendation. But we end up, or legislature ends up and analyzing it and voting on it directly anyway. So I think leaving it in as 3 years guarantees that there's that review by the administrator.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Annie and Martha just said. I think, and I said this last night, my experience has been that when something is a multi-year OTR, the administrator, Jason and Lisa, automatically put that in their recommended budget. So if the legislature says, okay, we do want to evaluate it, we do want to think about it again, but it's already in there. So somebody would have to make an amendment to take it out. And that generally doesn't happen. I mean, this is only my fourth time, but I've never seen anyone make an amendment to take out a multi-year OTR. So I think that it would be great to have this $15,000 to look at their business model, and I would love to see that in May or whatever you said. And I think that we can, help them this year, and then next year, they'll have this business plan and they can move forward.
Okay, is there anybody else? Because I have something I'd like to contribute. Like Amanda, I think that reuse is a great thing. I am reluctant to take on a multi-year obligation or commitment to fund operating expenses in $100,000 a year. I know that you've been a contractor for materials management, Diane, and you've done a great job, and that's what you were paid for. But a narrative has arisen that we were funding Finger Lakes reuse. We were not funding Finger Lakes reuse. We were funding recycling and materials management. And I looked at the previous year's budget. There's no mention of Finger Lakes reuse in there. There's just a lump sum that's paid for contract services. So it's not that we pulled your funding. So putting that aside, I also understand that you can't be left in the lurch for that $130,000 in the short term. So I'm perfectly willing to vote for Amanda's amendment with a caveat that we want to see the business plan. You and I have talked about this before, and we discussed it at the meeting that we all had. Finger Lakes Reuse does a wonderful job, but I think it tries to do too much. I really would like to see a more focused business plan that does not leave you running at a deficit. And I'm not willing to subsidize that deficit. So I would go with Amanda's amendment, and then you can come back next year and we can talk. For example, if you have a focused program that you want to pursue and you want to apply for a community recovery plan grant, you can do that, and we will be considering a proposal with respect to a specific, narrowly defined program. We would not be taking on your operating budget deficit for the long term. Shauna.
I am not going to support the amendment. And I would support the original OTR brought forth with the caveat that Diane cannot sell my wife a fourth pair of stilts.
Fourth, I think you have another problem there.
There's 3 pair of stilts in my house. So, with that said, if the amendment fails and in order to get support, there might be some more compromise as far as having it be 130 the first year and then tapering off years 2 and 3. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, anyone else? Martha.
Yeah, I think there's one issue is that there's one of those organizations that doesn't really belong anywhere. It doesn't report on a regular basis to the legislature. So Annie just reminded me that the part of the description in her OTR included that it would go to under the planning.
Give us updates. During the period.
Yeah, report to the Planning Environment, Energy and Environmental Quality Committee. There's sort of been an off again, on again relationship and not a regular reporting relationship. So I think that'll strengthen the whole, understanding in both directions. So, but Deborah, you said that you would support the idea of 130 now is just straight up one time, and then feel like for the recovery fund, if there's another separate kind of, specific item that or program that would be eligible or be, okay. I mean, I still think it's useful to have this come directly through the administrator's review if it's a multi-year, so I would continue to vote for that, but so I'll continue to vote for 3 years.
Well, I'll just say that I think that when you institute a multi-year program of subsidy, you create a mindset that leads eventually to perpetual dependence. And I'm not eager to take on another agency for the long haul. So Henry.
Yes, I'm not going to support Amanda's amendment. I feel just the opposite, that there will be people who will be watching this OTR for next year and will make sure that if the plan is not in place, so their plan is not in place, that they will not be funded. And so I feel like, we're the guardians of the budget. And so it's our job to basically make sure OTRs are not continued. So I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the amendment? Kathy?
Shauna Black,
No.
Amanda Champion, Henry Grandison,
No.
Rich John,
No.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
No.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
No.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
No.
Leslie Show,
No.
Mike Sig,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Six ayes, 7 noes. Motion passed.
Okay, so we'll move on to the main motion. Dan?
Did Kathy just say the motion passed?
No.
Yeah, basically fail.
Failed. Oh, okay.
Thank you. I would like to move an amendment to subtract this amount from the recovery fund. We can only do 1 year, in my opinion.
Okay, does somebody want to second that? Seconding? Okay, so let's discuss this. Leslie?
So I have a question about that. Should this be ledgered to future recovery fund? What would that mean for an application that would come through the recovery fund process? We haven't defined that yet, whether or not this that has a pretty specific use for this organization versus a different programmatic use that could come forth. What does that mean to folks?
Well, I would hazard the opinion that if we're granting monies to an organization to make up for lost income during the pandemic, that would be a different category of consideration than a program that's of benefit to the larger community. But I'm only, one person, so I don't know what to tell you about that. If anybody wants to answer that question before we move on, if they can. Otherwise, who wants to speak to?
Try to answer that question.
Okay.
I'm going to take this opportunity, again, I'm not speaking directly to you, but this came up a lot yesterday too, and I kept thinking the same thing. We set the parameters for the program and we vote on which projects we want to fund. I don't quite understand this discussion of like, well, will we be able to fund this? Well, of course we can. It's our program. We can do whatever we want. So for this specific question, all those ones yesterday too, of well, will this fall into that category? You know, will this be fundable? The answer is yes, if we want it to be fundable. It's our rules and our final vote on them.
We might could ask Mr. Sigler and Mr. John, since they were opining on it in some detail to the Cornell Daily Sun. Rich, do you have any?
Well, no, I agree with Dan. You know, the rules are what we say they is, right? We are in control of this fund and we can set the parameters as we see fit. I think I will support this amendment. I think it's a reasonable compromise. I think getting the funding to reuse is really the critical matter from where I sit. If this makes people more comfortable with supporting this OTR, I'm all for it. So I think it's okay. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I have Shauna, Martha, Annie, and Henry. Okay.
I would support this resolution because I just want this to pass. I think we're all trying to end up at the same place. And, you know, the reuse center, while we talk about it helping our county initiatives, it's also employing people in our county that have such a hard time getting a job. And, you know, that's something that we put hundreds of thousands of dollars into. And that's really one of the hardest things in our community is finding a job for people that, you know, have been incarcerated or have struggled with employment. And so, you know, I think this is going to be a good investment, and it will be a true trial to see what is working, what isn't working. And I think, you know, in the end, it really achieves both objectives of helping reuse items that can be reused, giving people skills in order to be successful, and then employing people that we have a really hard time employing. So I'm going to vote for this.
Okay, Martha.
So obviously I'm not going to be here when you guys set the rules for the recovery fund. So I just have this sort of nervousness that somebody will say, and maybe more will feel, well, wait, we already funded you out of the recovery fund. So if Diane comes for, you know, a $500,000 piece of equipment, I'm making this up, you know,
stilts
or more stilts, or, you know, whatever it is, or doll houses. You know, if the sentiment is going to be, yes, this was this, and that is that, and just because we pulled 130 out of the recovery fund doesn't prejudice us on a subsequent application that she might make, then I'm okay with this. But I just kind of want to hear from people who will be here and will be voting on this, that's not going to prejudice their evaluation of what might otherwise be a very eligible and important part of the recovery fund.
From me, so if anybody wants to respond to that, they're welcome to. But meanwhile, I have Annie and Henry.
I think I'll wait till I hear, you know, people answering that question, because I am interested in that.
Okay, Shauna, you want to address that?
Yeah, so I personally, if I were making the decision about these funds, I probably would look at it a little differently, very honestly, in that we're going to have a lot of people coming for these funds, would be on something way over the 7 million. And if I know that we're funding someone for 390,000 over the next 3 years, I'm not saying that they would go to the end of line, but we're all going to have to prioritize all of the applicants. And it would probably influence the way that I voted for the money to go. No, what I'm saying though is that, yeah, I guess this amendment would influence it coming from the rescue money.
So this is about ledgering it against the recovery fund.
Right. But what you're specifically saying is if someone, or if they were to come back with a different application, correct?
Right. I mean, this is operations but we've all heard, many different kinds of needs at the center. And the recovery fund is the place for one-time grants, which is a lot of what I've heard from Diane. So I'm saying this now, I guess, goes back to the previous vote. We voted to make it 3 years. If now I'm hearing that that'll keep people from supporting a bigger grant, I don't know if it's going to be bigger. I don't know what Diane's going to be. Maybe Diane won't come for the recovery fund. Maybe Diane could speak to that. But if 3-year funding is going to jeopardize her chances for recovery fund grant, I would change my vote and I would ask to reconsider the vote on the previous amendment, which to make it 1 year, but maybe we should hear from Diane if that's
right. We can do that. And then we have Henry and Rich.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love the opportunity to make a clarification. We have had a very unique relationship with the county. I think our first planning grant was in 2006. So there's 3 years of planning, and then we got Finger Lakes Reuse off the ground. And yes, while we've contracted for materials management services, because of the recycling and materials management's funding streams, whether it was coming directly from commodities or sometimes they leveraged New York State DEC money to support us. Sometimes the services we provided were about materials management. Sometimes it was about communications and raising awareness around recycling and reuse. So it changed from year to year. What's happened to us, what this particular funding request is about is not COVID related. That's a whole separate pain point that I haven't really addressed yet. What started happening in 2019 was between Marie Kondo and downsizing baby boomers, pre-COVID, our donations volume increased more than 70%. And that has sent us into a very challenging space. So we've only grown our sales 25%. So we haven't kept up with the volume, but we've growing 25%. If you talk to Heather McDaniel year after year, which Finger Lakes Reuse has, it's unsustainable. It's very, very difficult. The plan that we're talking about that Barb is willing to fund isn't going to be done in May. It's going to take all year, and it's not going to be just about Finger Lakes Reuse. It's going to be about the systems that we're a part of, the materials management. And, while I was sitting, I'm so grateful to each of you, and I've been paying attention to county processes for quite a while now because I've known this day would come. Barb has been saying, my fund balance is going down. I can't keep supporting you. And as we're growing, even though the money that she's been supplying has been a diminishing part of our overall budget, it's been critical. And this year has been incredibly challenging. So we're in crisis right now. We have a $300,000 gap between now and the end of the year that I was waiting until last week to understand what the COVID process, the recovery fund would be. And now we're turning to our partners. We're saying, we're not going to get anything from the county between now and the end of the year, we don't think. So we're going to need to deal with that elsewhere, at least to bridge us into possibly March. So to me, that's a separate conversation. The commitment from the county does a couple of things for me. One, it verifies that you guys want us to keep doing what we're doing, because that's why we're doing what we're doing, is because the county had a reuse center in its charter and we are acting in that way. The second is we can use that commitment to leverage. New York State is ready to give us money. We've been able to leverage a lot of county money for many other hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's really important to us. And what I was reading when I was over there is, a single pair of jeans requires at least 800 gallons of water, and it's responsible for the release of CO2 equivalents that's equal to charging your phone 2,500 times. That's one pair of jeans. But actually, that's not where the greatest impact is that Finger Lakes Reuse has. And it's not waste reduction either. It's the employment of people, of vulnerable people, the lives that we're changing here in this county. That is what's transformed me. It's why I'm working as hard as I am to keep doing this. So, you know, looking for a vote of confidence in a way from you guys today. It's going to be a huge piece, because if the county doesn't want to support what we're doing, we need to reconfigure more holistically who we are as an organization, because we do feel like we are an outpost for you. All through COVID, we promoted masks. We really tried to amplify the health department's messaging. And we feel very much connected to the county. Thank you.
Okay, I have Henry, I have Rich, I have Shauna.
Yes, I'd like to read a quote from the Cornell Sun. It's a great opportunity for us to try to do something transformational that would never go through the regular budget process, said Rich John. This is it. The recovery fund is for transformational projects. I don't view the money going to reuse to be a transformational project. And yet if we shift the funding to that, and then we say, okay, only transformational projects, and people say, what about the money that you spent on reuse? What do we tell them? That was then, this is now. I've had issues with this whole process of moving our stuff to recovery funds. And also, it's a multi-year project. I don't see moving it to a one-year recovery fund makes sense. It basically undercuts the whole theory of a multi-year resolution. So I will not be voting for it. That's it.
Yeah, Henry kind of set the table for me there. Yeah, I think overall, our recovery fund criteria should be trying to identify large transformational projects that can really make long-term impact in our community. With that said, I think what we're talking about right now is a compromise. And getting through the end of our budget, it's a compromise. Some of you may think that funding this is transformational, or you just might feel comfortable that we as a county are not spending as much in the recovery fund because we're spending this money here. I don't care. But I would like to go back to Martha's question, which I think has kind of driven us down a side discussion that may not be really productive, because it's a hypothetical. We don't yet have the full criteria for the program, and we certainly don't have Finger Lakes Reuse making a proposal. I think Shauna hit the nail on the head saying it might, we can say, don't think about a rhinoceros. You're going to think about it. The same thing here. If we fund this OTR and then Finger Lakes Reuse is involved in some recovery fund application, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to say, yeah, they got some money already. And that's okay. That's part of our job. But I think we should focus here on, can we get this funding now for reuse so that they can plug their budget and make sure they continue doing what they're doing, which I think is critical. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I've got Shauna and then Martha.
So assuming that this passes, I just want to give everyone a heads up that I would like to make an amendment to provide $20,000 for a business strategy study specific to the reuse center, because we are going to be investing $390,000 over the next 3 years. And we really want to make sure that they have an accurate study of how to move forward and how to have strategic practices. I know that they're going to be part of Barb's study, but it sounds like that is basically how they specifically fit into the recycling program. It's not, it's actually covering your operations as well?
No, and actually, I understand from Heather, there's Empire State Development money that can match Barb's money, so I'm not sure that that's the best place to focus, but no, it's more systemic. How does Finger Lakes reuse fit in a reuse system with warehouses and hubs? What does that look like? It's beyond our organization, although it would, we would also get a strategic plan out of that that's for Finger Lakes reuse.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because I mean, there's no need for us to pay, close to $400,000 and for you guys not to have a business strategy moving forward that's going to be successful.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, however, because we still have Dan's proposed amendment on the floor. Does anybody else want to address that? Martha?
Yeah, so again, I think in the scheme of things, the 130,000 off the 7 million is not tragic. And, like we did last night, I think I don't mind that. I guess my hope is that that you all will trust yourselves, that if you really think in year 2 and year 3, that, well, you've already done enough for Finger Lakes reuse. You put 130,000 here and you funded whatever they asked for, for the recovery fund. And then you feel like the second year of the OTR is too much, then vote against it. Please don't, that's the whole point of when you're funding. And it doesn't have to always be continual. I mean, I think for example, there are a lot of one-times in here that Lisa continued using ARPA funds. So this budget is unusual in how many one-times got funded. It's not usually that easy for a one-time to get renewed. So I'm just saying, and you won't have as much ARPA money next year to do that with. You're using more of it this year. So I guess I'll vote for taking this off the top of the recovery fund. But please just ask you not to prejudice yourselves against whatever proposal they might bring to you in February or March.
Okay, I have Annie and then Leslie. And this should be addressing the amendment.
Right. Thank you. So I'm trying to remember last night. I mean, Dan said his part of the reasoning for this last night. So pardon me feel free to correct me. But if this is to not put our fund balance down lower, then I think some people said that, well, if we have less in our fund balance, we're gonna, using the figures of the 18% reserve, then if this comes out of the fund balance, we're gonna have less to be able to use next year anyway.
It doesn't make a practical difference.
Right.
Yes, that's your point.
So that's my point. So that's already done. So to me, we don't need to do that. We don't need to take it out of the recovery fund to use less next year. So that's in my thinking.
Okay.
And this could prejudice other people because this is not COVID related. And if this isn't COVID related, if it's not a transformational project, then I don't see a reason to do that. So I'm going to vote no against that. And I urge my colleagues to vote no on this and reconsider if you thought you were going to vote yes, to vote no on this. Thank you.
Leslie?
Point of clarification. I just want to make sure in the discussions in the multiple amendments, I've gotten a little tangled, and I want to make sure that what we're voting on is still a multi-year, 3-year OTR where Dan has requested that the first year be applied to future recovery fund. Is that accurate?
That's extraordinarily clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Let's vote.
Okay, well, I won't be voting for this amendment simply because it does not address my concern, which is not committing myself to 3 years of funding operations. Did you have something, Amanda, before we vote on the amendment? Okay. Kathy?
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion, Henry Grandison,
No.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein, Ann Corman,
No.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
No.
Glenn Maury,
No.
Martha Robertson,
Yes. Yes.
Leslie Show,
No.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
seven ayes, 6 noes. It carries, it passes. 7 ayes, 6 noes. Yes.
All right, so the OTR motion on the floor now is a 3-year one-time OTR, the first year being charged against the first tranche of our community recovery plan grant fund. The second and third year to be decided. We ready to vote? Leslie?
I just want to say one more thing about reuse. So I've been, I know this is the end run here and we're all ready to vote, sorry. I just want to say how impressed I've been over the years with reuse. I got to be in like the inaugural tour when it first went up, when I worked for planning, meeting Diane on site. And, I go to reuse and pick things up just like everybody. But the piece that I was so impressed with that day, and so at this point, that was a while ago, was all of the workforce development skill training that was happening on site, people that were breaking down and rebuilding computers and other technological pieces there. And of late, I've been learning about kids that are just turning 16 and trying to find a first job and how engaging it's been for them to go there and learn skills right away that we know are going to be transferable. So it's for folks that have trouble finding jobs. It's for our kids that are moving into the workforce. And yeah, I love reuse for all the stuff I can go get to, and to keep it out of the waste stream is critical. But I do think about the workforce development element. And so just want to keep that front and center. This is kind of an interesting organization that does it all. And highlighting that, I think, will be important as we move forward and think about future funding for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. I just want to remind my colleagues and people who might be watching that there are many reasons to vote for or against an OTR that don't have anything at all to do with the worthiness or quality of the services that are being provided. So with that, I think we're ready to vote, Kathy.
Point of information, quick question.
Sure.
What was the last vote total?
7-6.
And how does that carry? I thought we needed 8 votes.
No, but it's a majority of the members present, and we only have 13.
Oh, it's the majority of members present? I thought it was a majority of the members seated.
Not for the expanded budget committee meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion, Henry Grandison,
No.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Leslie Show,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
with 11 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you.
Resolution.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay. That carries, and now we are ready to move on. Prize. Actual resolution adoption to the 2022 tentative Tompkins County budget. Help with this, Daniel and I'm sorry, Shauna.
Yeah, I actually would like to ask Daniel how much funding would be needed to not raise our taxes for our constituents this year.
Sorry, how much to not raise taxes at all, like to bring it to zero?
Yeah, tax levy, sorry.
Yep.
We've already put aside.
Say it again. I'm sorry, Deborah, I didn't hear you.
Over and above the million we've already put aside. How much would we have to take out of fund balance in order to leave our tax levy increase at?
Oh, how much? Okay, gotcha. So how much would we have to increase the fund balance amendment that is currently voted on?
Yes,
Right now, it's
exactly.
just $1 million. Okay, gotcha. It would be the remaining balance of the OTRs. So let me go here. So first of all, it would be this minus the adopted budget from last year. It would be an additional $605,000 would have to be added to this.
All right.
I'm sorry, how much?
$605,511.
And where are we? Oh, 1.16%. Okay. All right. I take it there's a motion coming?
Yes, I would like to make a motion. Uh-oh.
No, I was just displaying it. See,
Okay.
0% levy increase over the prior year would be right there. The tax rate would be $6.10 per $1,000. The tax on the median price home would be $1,250. The change in the tax bill for the median home price, the owner of a median price home would be $8.02.
Okay, Dan, where's the 605 amount?
Oh, sorry, I baked it right into here.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I just did it to display that. Right now, what is passed is currently this. What is actually
Okay.
So currently, you're looking at, if you do not pass any further amendments, if everything is the way it is, the tax rate is $6.17. The tax on the median price home are $1,265. The change in the tax bill will be $22.46 on the median priced home.
Okay. So I would like to make an amendment to use $605,511 out of our fund balance so that our tax levy stays the same.
Do I have a second? Dan? Okay. All right, discussion. Martha?
This is even more than the first motion that we voted on, discussed at a great length last night. This is another $40,000 coming out of fund balance. We already rejected that first number. I'm vehemently opposed to this amendment.
Okay, I have Shauna, and then it looks like I have Henry and Mike Ziegler.
So first
and
off,
Mike Lane.
We had actually talked about last night revisiting this at the end of the budget session once we saw our numbers. The number last night was assuming we did certain things and didn't assume certain things. So that's why we're seeing the increase. We have the fund balance to do that. I'm not saying every year we're going to do this, but this year our constituents need the help. So this is something that we can do to help our community, and I don't see why we wouldn't do it.
Okay, who was next?
Henry.
Mike,
Henry.
Mike Sigler was next.
Okay, Mike Sigler, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I was kind of going to ask Dan, what does it take to get our tax? Listen, I know everybody is always interested in the tax levy. It's real money. I get all that. I also get that the tax levy is probably never going to go down. I convey this to my constituents. I convey to them why it's never going to go down because of benefits and employees. They get that part. But if I can get the tax rate to 6.21, I can explain that to them. You know, your tax rate didn't go up. Yes, my assessment went up $15,000, but at least now you're not hitting me twice. You know, so I would really like to know what it would take spending wise to get the tax rate to be the same as opposed to the tax levy being the same, because the tax levy is going to go up every year. So
Yeah, so at the moment, the tax, without doing any further adjustments, the tax rate has actually decreased from $6.21 to $6.17.
right. So I'm wondering, what would we have to put in? And if nobody else wants to hear this, fine. But Dan, I'm wondering how much it would take to spend to get to 6.21 to keep the tax rate even.
Oh,
where it
actually,
was in 2021.
to decrease this a little bit, we would have to.
It's below 2021 already.
Yeah, you would be effectively increasing taxes by a couple of cents per $1,000 of assessed value.
No, well, you have it at 617. According
Yes,
to
and last year it was $6.21. Yeah.
So that's just with the $1 million in.
Yeah. You've already reduced it from $6.21 to $6.17. So you reduced it by 9 cents per $1,000.
Okay. So you're saying that the tax rate,
it went down basic $19.32 because of this one.
I'm sorry, I'm confused then, because I'm reading 2021 is at $6.21.
Yes.
Then the recommended budget is $6.26.
Yeah, that was what the county administrator's recommended budget would be without any amendments that you guys have passed.
Right. And now with all the amendments in,
yes,
with the $1 million that we put in, we're down to $6.17.
Yes, you are.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we good, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I would revisit that then. I mean, the $1 million, that seems, I don't know. It just seems to me if we can hold the line on the tax rate, that's what we should be gunning for.
Okay, let's do one.
That's a personal belief, I guess.
1 minute at a time. Okay. Okay, now I've got Henry and then Martha and then Mike Lane.
Yes, last night, I questioned whether or not Dan should have brought the motion early. And I tried to table the motion, and now we have another motion. What a surprise. I just think I have to agree with Martha on this, is that I'm in opposition to this, you know, because at one point we're talking about sending everything to the rescue fund because we don't have it, because we're trying to save the fund balance. And the next time we want to spend money $1 million out of the fund balance, or $1.6 million out of the fund balance. I don't see it makes sense, so I'm not going to support it.
Okay, Martha, Mike Lane, Dan Klein.
A question for Dan. How much have we charged against the recovery fund?
John.
What?
Katrina and I are communicating through Vulcan Line Mount. Sorry we interrupted.
Dan, how much have we taken or charged against recovery funds so far?
Sure. Let me check the notes over here. See. No. Sorry, it's a bit inefficient to do it on screen, but
I understand. Sorry.
it's fine. Yeah, so that would be this guy, Let me just do it this way. This will be a little bit easier to illustrate.
If you want, I'll talk about some other things if you want to come back to this.
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you in 1 second.
Okay, so I will reiterate what I said last night. I want to channel Joe Mariano. I want to channel Jason Molino. I want to channel Lisa Holmes. If you want to dig yourselves into a hole next year and have your April budget retreat and have the county administrator say, okay, a maintenance of effort budget is going to be, you have to start with a 5% tax levy increase just to do what you're doing now, then go ahead and take even more out of the fund balance for the tax levy. It really, really is a bad habit. It's taking one-time money and paying ongoing costs for it, ongoing funding with one-time money. I also think it's actually, kind of as Mike Sigler was saying, it is a sort of false message. It's a false feel-good message to tell taxpayers that we did all this stuff and it didn't cost you anything extra. That's really not realistic, you know? It's far better for people to, and we've heard this over and over again, far better for people to get, you know, to understand their taxes will go up a little bit every year rather than be faced with a big nut to crack once every couple of years. That's a real shock. That really hurts people. People can expect a modest increase. The way we've wrestled this thing to the ground so far, I think it was before he started changing it, it was about 1% increase. I think that's fine. That's a good compromise. That is a very modest increase, and it doesn't set you up for failure next year.
Okay, does Daniel have the number yet?
I do. It's $464,656 have currently been allocated or will be retroactively applied to the recovery fund.
464, 656. That's a pretty big chunk.
So that's it will be to go through the amendments. It will be the first year of the Sunflower House Amendment. It will be the Career Pathways Amendment, the multi-year OTR for student resource navigation, the first year of that amendment, and the first year of the Finger Lakes reuse, $130,000.
And that's 1/14 of the recovery fund. That's a meaningful chunk that you just reduced. You've already protected the fund balance. So I think it's irresponsible to try to artificially lower the tax levy at this point.
Okay, let's move on. We've got Mike Lane and Rich John.
For all the reasons I spoke about before, when the first amendment came up, I don't think we should do this. I am looking. Tell me where we were before this amendment was, Dan Nolan, please. What was the tax levy increase? Is it 1.18 or
it was
2.7?
It would be 2.7% if you approved everything in the recommended budget. If you guys hadn't approved the $1 million, it would have been 3.6%. And again, this is the levy increase. It's not necessarily it doesn't directly translate to everyone's taxes going up 3%. It's the levy increase goes up 3%. That would be done in through a myriad of mechanisms.
Excuse me, but the 1 million from fund balance, our levy increase is what now?
Without the $1 million, it would be 3.06%. Yes.
All right. It's hard for me to read the colored.
Sorry, let me try to.
Screen. It's not your fault, but it's just hard to read.
And that again, that translates.
What I'm saying is,
sure,
if I may, we have a tax cap of over 7%. it is not irresponsible to have a levy increase when we have all the contractual expenses that we're going to have with labor and other contracts to deal with. So I don't think that we need to go any lower than that. I think this is reasonable. It's our job to make sure that we aren't setting ourselves up for problems next year, as Martha mentioned. But that's why I can't support a change here.
Okay, Rich and then Dan.
Yeah, I understand the sentiment here. And it would be nice to say a 0% or zero tax levy increase. But I think we've done a pretty good job with I think it's 1.08. Am I reading that right, Dan? At any rate, and we've reduced the tax rate, so I'm comfortable with this as it is. I think I'm going to vote against this. Thanks.
Dan?
Okay, just a couple of things. If I'm not mistaken, the tax rate has gone down every year the last 6 or 7 years, every single year. Has your tax bill gone down? No. So it's not, the only way to get your tax bill down is to actually lower the levy, the amount of money that we are actually collecting. So that was one thing. Another thing is, well, I guess the only other thing I want to say is this, the dig a hole analogy. It's given every year. And in the last 10 years, I believe this is true, we have never started with a hole. In other words, it is possible to start with a hole. It's even going to be possible to start with a hole if we increase taxes 5%. It all depends on what the actual revenues are that year and what the expenditures are that year. So every year we have this discussion, but we never have started with that actual hole. So at what point do we say, well, maybe we won't start with that hole next year? I think this would be a good year to start. Let's say that. Let's assume we're not going to start with the hole. And if we do, there are tools we have to address that, which would be increasing taxes, cutting expenses, and digging further into the fund balance. Those are the tools of the budget. And that's what we have to use if we're in trouble next year. But if we assume now we're in trouble next year, we can't go back and raise last year's taxes. I remember saying this last year and someone said, what does that mean? What that means is we had the same discussion last year. We didn't start out in the hole, but we cannot go back and lower last year's taxes. Now we're raising next year's taxes. So the only way to stop that cycle is to do it in the budget year. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call on Leslie, then I'm going to speak, and then we are going to vote. I'm sorry, we've just beaten this horse until it's 4 feet underground.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm comfortable with the $1 million that I felt was a compromise last night. And we all spoke, I think, for a pretty good long time last night about, our reasons for and against. And I appreciate both sides of the discussion. And I'm a taxpayer. I get it. No, my taxes have not gone down. I don't actually expect that they're going to. But I appreciate that this body is trying to balance, both the county government's finances against individuals, the citizenry's finances. And this is where we stand on the balance, right? I do think the $1 million was a very generous step. It doesn't go all the way. I get that. But I think that it does make a difference here and could make a difference for folks' bills. So I do think we've done something on that behalf. Thank you.
So let me explain why, although I supported the original OTR yesterday, I'm not going to support this addition. Over the last 2 nights, we've increased our target by $190,631. If you increase that by 2% maintenance of effort, the year after that, we're going to be up around $194,000, and it's going to compound year after year after year. We're looking at a compensation study. I simply, as our target increases and builds, and I know it will compound, I simply can't feel that it's responsible to hold our levy increase to zero when we know for a fact that we're going to be facing a much higher target in the coming years. So I'm going to vote no on this. Are we ready to vote? Kevin?
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Granison,
No.
Rich John,
No.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
No.
Mike Lane,
No.
Dave McKenna,
No.
Glenn Maury,
No.
Martha Robertson,
No.
Leslie Show,
No.
Mike Sigler,
No.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
3 ayes, 10 noes. Motion fails.
All right, so now, take this piece of paper around and tell us that we are at the stage blanks in on the golden resolution that sets our tentative Tompkins County budget for 2022 to 2020. Oh, wait, this is the, oops, for 2022 to 2023, or 2022 rather. Kathy, with the help of Daniel, can you fill those numbers in for us all? Daniel, do you have the motion?
I've got the numbers right here. So let me see here. Adopted new added revenue $1 million. Nope, it's not that. Levy. These should be the numbers. Are they entered into the document, Kathy, or do I have to read them to you?
Yes, if you could read them out loud, that would be helpful.
Oh, great. All right. So sorry.
Tax levy amount.
Okay, there we go. Total tax levy amount. So let me go through here. Spending 2022 recommended, the new adopted, 2022 adopted. The tax levy amount, let me make sure it's 53. Let me make sure it's correct. Yep. Okay. Just making sure everything's referencing properly. The new tax levy amount will be $53,004,970.
Okay. That's an approximate tax levy increase of how many percent?
That would be 1.16%.
Okay. And a countywide average tax rate of what per thousand?
Countywide average. Oh, so you mean the taxes on the median price homeowner?
The
average
tax rate of, what's the tax rate per thousand? I don't think we need an average in there, quite honestly.
Oh, hold on. Actually, I do have the average tax rate per thousand. Sorry, it was pre-set up on the sheet. $6.17.
Okay, and that's a decrease of, so that's
0.67%.
0.7.
Say it one more time, please.
0.67%.
Yeah, it's a decrease of 0.67%.
Thank you.
Okay, and then because the value of a median priced home increased from what to what?
200,000 to 205,000.
Okay. To how many dollars?
It went from $200,000 to $205,000. So it had a change of $5,000 in the median price home.
So that was $200,000 in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
To 205,000 in 2021.
It was
okay.
no. Actually, it's not the budget year. It's not the budget.
2020 to 2020.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. All right, one person at a time. What years?
2020 and then 2021.
Thank you.
The tentative budget as amended results in an increased tax payment of how much on a median priced home?
The increased tax payment on a median price home, you want just the increase? It would be, or the total amount, I'm sorry.
The total
Increase.
The increase would be $22.46.
46 cents? Okay. I'd like to move this.
Give me a minute.
Oh, Mike Lane has a couple of questions.
And one I brought up, I think back in the retreat, but back on the first resolve where we're talking about the approximate tax levy increase, 1.16%. That's what happened to the 3%?
The $1 million knocked it down to 1.16.
Well, all right, then I guess that I got confused in our dialogue a little earlier. So we're saying that the levy is being proposed as going up 1.16%.
That is correct.
Okay, well, I like that even better. The other thing is on the second resolve, where we talk about the increase of $22.46 on a medium priced home. I've argued for a long time that this resolution ought to say that what the bill would be, the amount of the bill raised to whatever the new amount is. So I would add a comma at the end of that resolve and say, or a tax bill increase from blank dollars to blank dollars. I felt for a long time that when we say it's just going up $22, what it doesn't say to the public is what your actual bill on a median priced home would be. You know, is it going to be going from $1,000 to $1,022?
It'll be 1,265 from 1,242.
1,265.
Up from 1,242. That's a change of $22.
So that would be 1,287.
I think you said it.
No, it's stated earlier. It's that number right there.
1,242
to 1,265.
Yeah, it's a change of $22.
$23. Oh, okay. That's a $23 increase.
Yeah, it's a $22.46 increase.
But then we could say approximate. Yeah, I would feel much better if that figure was in there, because then when people looking at their tax bills, they would say, yes, I'm going to have to pay not $22, or anywhere near it, but I'm actually going to have to pay $1,242 now, going up to $1,265.
Well, why couldn't we just say to a total tax payment of $1,265?
You could do that, but I just think I think that it ought to be in there somehow. I would accept that.
Is that okay with everybody? Do we need to vote on that?
Total county tax.
Yeah.
Total county tax payment, okay.
Have we moved it?
No.
Yeah, so.
All right. So can somebody second it? All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Happy to move it.
Have we moved this resolution?
No.
We can't make an amendment on it yet.
Thank you, goddess of rules. Who wants to move this with the blanks filled in except for, okay. So Sean moves it, Leslie seconds. Now, Mike, your proposed amendment.
What we just talked about, perhaps it would be friendly.
Is it friendly?
I don't think I moved it, but no. I think we should vote on it.
I moved it. Is it? Is it friendly to add the wording that Mike wants to add about the total county tax?
I don't think it is friendly. I think there are people with other opinions. So. Sorry.
So I would say no.
All right, so what's the problem? Amanda?
Well, I think that personally adds more confusion. If somebody reads this and they say, okay, I'm only gonna have to pay 1,265, I mean, that's a medium priced home. They might have a very cheap home. They might have a very, very expensive home. So, I mean, if they can't do the math, I mean, $22 is the change. So I don't know. I don't agree that we need to put it in there.
Okay, well, we don't have a second on Mike's motion yet. Does somebody want to second it? Dan
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got Martha and Leslie.
You know, I actually agree. I think with Amanda, there are a lot of numbers in here. And I just think it's going to be that much more confusing. I mean, you know, I think it's already confusing to people what my taxes are, and they think of, if what this is meant to do is to kind of have people reflect that, oh, 2/3 of my taxes are actually the school district. Because my county is only 1,200. I mean, I don't know if that works. I don't think it's necessary. I think if this is about transparency, that's fair, but I think it's actually only going to add confusion.
Okay, Annie. Oh, wait, Leslie's next, I think, and then Annie.
Yeah, I was having the same sense that there are a lot of numbers in this resolution to begin with. I wasn't here when folks thought that a paragraph about what a medium priced home, you know, we go through all the jumping through hoops on what a medium priced home is. Perhaps that's informative for folks, but unless they happen to fall within that little criteria, theirs is different. So I don't know that we need to add numbers is all I'm saying. I don't know that it will add clarity. Although I like to know how much I'm going to pay generally speaking.
Well, I think the reason we put the median price home thing in is because the assessments change, the tax base change, the median price home goes up, and people who just saw that first result might think, well, isn't this grand? My taxes are going to go down, and then they're quite unpleasantly surprised. Annie.
I agree with Mike Lane, as I always do, that I think this, for me, this increases transparency. It's a small thing to put in there. For people who are into numbers or own a house or want to know, this might be a different way to show them. They might look at one thing and then something else, you know, helps them to gel of what this means to them. So that if it doesn't hurt, you know, it's only a couple of lines in there. Adding this further on, to me, I like putting that in because another thing that it does too is not just transparency for the county, but it helps remind people, like somebody might have said this, the county taxes are only one portion, and for my taxes, it's a much smaller portion than school taxes and some other town taxes and other things. So I think I like having that in there. It's more information for people. I don't think it hurts.
Okay, Henry, and then we're going to vote.
Yes. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think many people are reading the budget resolutions. I think that
Really?
I think that the way, I think that the way that the analysis is how it appears in the Ithaca Voice and Ithaca Journal, which I assume is Dominic's area to basically tell them, okay, this is the average median home price, and basically make it clear that, you know, again, put it in context of what it means, because that's the only way people are going to know about it. And so I don't think it makes much of a difference whether we put it or not. But I'll probably support it.
For it. All right, Mike, I'm going to let you have the last word because it's your motion.
Want to say, yeah, a lot of people may not be reading our resolutions line by line, but these are the kind of things that do make the media. They like those figures, print them in the paper, or put them on press releases.
Okay, let's vote on Mike's amendment.
Shauna Black?
Yeah, what is it?
It's to add the wording at the end of the second resolved comma to $1,265 to a county tax payment of $1,200.
Yes.
Okay. Amanda Champion?
No.
Henry Granison?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
McKenna?
Yes.
Glenn Maury?
No.
Martha Robertson?
No.
Leslie Shill?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
No.
No.
No. Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Nine ayes, 4 noes.
Okay, so that carries, and we will never have to hear that motion again.
I'm going to move to remove it next year.
Alrighty,
That was just,
are we ready to vote on this final? Our efforts of the past 2 months.
Absolutely.
Kathy?
Okay. Shauna Black?
yes.
The Champion?
Yes.
Henry Granison?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Dave McKenna?
Yes.
Glenn Maury?
Yes.
Martha Robertson?
Yes.
Leslie Shill?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
13 ayes.
Up to leave, I recognize the difficulty that Lisa and her team of Daniel and Samantha and all of our department heads have had to deal with under circumstances. And I am so grateful to you all. What?
Thank you very much, Deborah, for this and for conducting these meetings. They're not always fun, but you do a really good job.
Well, I think we've all had a pretty good time and we don't, so that's a real triumph. Okay.
And thank you, Kathy, Katrina, and Brittany.
And all our department heads for working through this all summer long. Lisa, you didn't know you could do it, but you know, there you go.
Oh. And Daniel's been a champ, so.
Yes.
Thanks,
everybody.
Break out the champagne.